So I'm Kelsey Hawley. I spent the last 7 weeks at Girls Who Code, and I wanted to share that experience. So if you haven't heard of Girls Who Code, it was founded by Reshma. Like many of us, she noticed the gender gap in the computer sciences and technology. And what she saw was that many young girls are actually very interested in computer programming and computer scientists. But as they get older, that number kind of drops. By the time when they get to college, there's very few of them left. So she came up with 2 different ways to kind of get girls interested and keep them interested in computer science. So one of them is after-school clubs. These are for 6th to 12th graders who hang out maybe in a teacher's classroom. They get exposure to computer science and some of the fundamentals. And the other is the Summer Immersion Program, which is a 7-week program over the summer for 10th and 11th graders where they cover the fundamentals, have them build various programs in a bunch of different languages, also gives them exposure to many different women in tech as well as the jobs in tech. So this is me and my 2 TAs for the summer, Kim and Jen. And we tried to encourage sisterhood as well as the qualities here that are, making our girls brave and resilient, socially just, emotionally intelligent, intellectually curious. So everything we did, we really encouraged the girls to feel this about themselves and embody these things. So the first language we taught them was actually Scratch. So you can kind of see on the screen, there's the little cat icon. They had it drawing pictures. If you're not familiar with Scratch, it's a block kind of puzzle-like language that teaches them about conditionals, functions, all the basics of programming. After Scratch, we went into Python, and so they were drawing shapes with the turtle library. Soon they were writing their own text adventures, and by the next project, they were using the pillow library to dissect the pixels in an image and put a filter on it. And I thought some of the coolest images were actually mistakes in their code. So the blurry one here is actually one of the pixels was not written to the file, and so it created this kind of crazy-looking image. Then they learned Arduino. They were playing with the LED lights. And they were also, hopefully these will load, yes. They also taught them to dance and sing a song, which I don't have the audio for plugged in. That's okay. We did a lot of code reviews together, so we went through their code, we debugged it as a class, we went over some things that, wow, you did this really well, your peers could really learn from this. The video showing is actually our escape bot, so they had sensors on it, and as it ran into walls, it was supposed to kind of back up and get through the maze. Theirs was a little bit buggy, it just wanted to really rug into walls. That was part of the fun. We also taught them HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Some of them came out of the summer with a really well-done, professional-looking portfolio site. Some of them still look like something I built in the 90s. It's fun. We had them do journals through every day, kind of documenting their journey and their process. And we covered what we called the core 4. So we taught them variables, we taught them loops and conditionals, and we taught them functions. And I'm not going to lie, these screenshots I actually stole from one of my students' websites. So there you go. And finally, the last 2 weeks, we had them focusing on final projects. So they came up with various ideas of what they wanted to build for the last 2 weeks of the program, and then they picked what they wanted to work on as a group together. And so once they had their group, I think I had 5 different groups total, once they had their group, we had them wireframe and storyboard what they wanted to build. At the very end, when they had built that, they had a poster board here that had their inspirations, their process along the way, the problem they were trying to tackle, as well as the solution that they came up with. One of the projects was called Nuage, and it was a chat bot that some of my girls built for the depressed, the lonely, and the upset. Another one was Environ to encourage recycling. My favorite part, my TA actually had this from her time at Girls Who Code. We had a stuffed animal named Aurora. And she was the stuffed animal we gave out every day to a different girl who embodied one of the 4 concepts. And these are various pictures of them with Aurora, maybe that night, with pets, with hobbies. And at the very end, we actually gave each girl their own individual Aurora. So if you see me taking pictures with mine around, that's what it's about. So I encourage you to all get involved. It was a great summer for me. Join a local club, be a mentor. be a classroom sponsor, be a teacher.
Yeah. Well done.
Hello, I am Eric Holscher. You might know me from Read the Docs and or Write the Docs world. Today I'm going to be talking about the Python Software Foundation. Please raise your hand if you know what the Python Software Foundation is. Keep your hand up if you know what the Python Software Foundation does. All right, so about 70%. So my talk today is, what is the Python Software Foundation and why should I care? So, credit for most of these goes to Eva, who is our kind of coordinator. She's really, you can think of her as the CEO of the PSF. She's given talks, you've seen her, she also helps run PyCon, but a lot of this data and anecdotes come from her. So, really, the PSF is us. The PSF is you. Anyone who spends 5 hours a month working on Python-related community projects, writing documentation, writing code, helping people in IRC, really just doing anything that furthers the mission of Python in any way, is eligible to become a member of the PSF. So if that's you, you can go onto python.org or just Google, Python PSF, and you can find out more information about joining the PSF. So what does being a member of the PSF mean? That means you get to elect the board of directors. The board of directors are the people who actually run the PSF. I learned this by being elected to the board of directors about 2 months ago. So I am still figuring out how all this stuff works, and I'm trying to explain it to folks as well. Because the PSF is a really kind of special organization. Not many other software languages have organizations behind them that do all the good work that we do to increase diversity, to make events happen, all this kind of stuff. So all the membership of the PSF votes. It's basically a democracy. You select the board, then the board oversees the staff. The PSF has 5 full-time staff who work on operating the Python Software Foundation. So what does the PSF actually do? What are the operations that happen inside the PSF? The big thing the PSF does is run PyCon US. So the big Python conference that just happened in Portland, it had 3,500 people. The PSF actually runs that event. Django and DjangoCon are actually run by a separate nonprofit. So the DSF and DEFNA are separate nonprofits, so DjangoCon is run independently of the DSF. That's one of the big differences. The PSF and the DSF are similar also in that we hold the IP rights for the language. So the trademark of the word Python is held by the PSF. Django is held by the DSF. We also hold, as the PSF, the PyCon trademark, PyLadies trademarks, both in the US, in Europe, and other places. So we're kind of the legal entity that says when somebody talks about Python, they're actually talking about the programming language that we release on python.org that is like, so you know what you're talking about when you get Python. The other big thing that we do, so PyCon every year makes money. That funds the operations of the PSF, and we also give a large amount of that money away. So in the last year, I believe in 2016, we gave over $250,000 in grants to conferences. So the DjangoCon is sponsored by the PSF. That was done through a grant. Almost a majority of all Django Girls events all across the world are sponsored by the PSF. Almost every Python conference, all the regional events, all the international events are supported by the PSF. So we bootstrap a lot of events, we bootstrap a lot of communities, and we really try and give money to places that are really gonna have an impact in growing the diversity and just the global outreach of the Python language. And last year, we actually gave money to 45 different countries to support the Python communities in those countries. So that's one of the big things that we do. So how can you get involved with the PSF? By being at DjangoCon, you're almost certainly doing 5 hours a month of work on Django or Python or anything like that. You can join a working group. So we have a few different working groups that you can join that do different things in the community. You can become a member and actually vote and choose who the board is, choose who is kind of directing the PSF. You can run for the board if you think you know what the PSF should be doing and you actually know stuff about nonprofits, unlike me. You can also convince your company to donate to the Python or Django software foundations so that we continue doing this good work. You can also volunteer at PyCon or DjangoCon or any of these other things. Okay, last thing, we can also do more. Like the PSF is just this kind of thing that's giving out money. I really want the vision of the PSF to be more than that, to help operate things like PIP, PyPI, those things currently have no official funding. So that's something I'm really trying to work on. Last thing, you should come to PyCascades, which is in Vancouver, January 22nd and 23rd. So more Northwest awesome things. Thank you.
Hopefully nothing else will go wrong. My name is Laura Hampton. I am a Python developer in New York City, and I am somewhat involved with pyvideo.org, which is the index site for Python videos. A lot of the Python conferences put up their videos, and a lot of the times they wind up on YouTube or some other video site. The thing is, it can be very hard to find the videos, and to find videos by specific speakers or on specific topics, because YouTube is full of things like cat videos and videos about makeup and monster trucks. So we've created PyVideo to make Python videos easier to find. This is our homepage. You can see talks from past conferences. You can see talks from conferences that you could not attend for whatever reason. You can see talks from conferences on the other side of the world. And you can do the hallway track without guilt, because you can go back and watch videos later. We have talks organized by tags. That's our main tags page for your convenience. And we have the best tags. We also have talks organized by speakers, so you can find everything that somebody has said on a particular, in their career. We also have the talks organized by events, so if you want to look at the talks from this event, you can find them when they get posted. We are also an open source project. So if you would like to help, you can go to that URL and you can start seeing which videos we have not yet posted. We are based on Pelican, which is a Python-based static site generator. The video entries are JSON objects, and we are relatively beginner-friendly. There are a couple things that I would like to sort out that would make it even more beginner-friendly, but if you are interested in getting involved in open source, we are a very good first project. Unfortunately, we will not be sprinting, but this is a good place to start. So yes, visit pyvideo.org and enjoy our videos.
Thank you all. To start out, we the best code. Thank you. So, hello DjangoCon. This is Fun with Channels. My name is Jeremy Gatens. I'm here from Philadelphia. This presentation is going to be a mix about Django channels and also about Pablo Picasso. So as an intro, art is a lie that makes us realize the truth. And this piece is Woman in a Hat. I'm also wearing a hat. Okay, as for me, I only have 5 minutes, but I can talk all day about myself. I am the newest web professional at Words, the award-winning research platform of Wharton Business School. I graduated from E-Town College. I'm a Tom Petty fan who does web design in that order. Often referred to as a degenerate disc golfer, much of my free time I'm spending chasing that sweet jangle at the world-famous Sedgley Woods disc golf course. If you have any questions about disc golf, please come find me. Okay, the point of all this, why are we here? Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And this is girl before mirror. Bloop. There we go. So what the talk is on is Django channels. I wanted to learn a little bit about it at DjangoCon because I was unfamiliar with it. And the best way to learn about a subject is to present about it. Yeah, hello. So channels is something that it allows for more than plain HTTP requests. I find that it allows you to really have a fully functioning website that both the front end and the back end are completely synchronized. The proof of this. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. As we all know, hi there. As an open source, there's no use reinventing the wheel. This is piece of Picasso is Dora Maar. And what I found with Django channels, what I found the value in it is as a web designer who likes to do projects on the side, I'm able to offer added functionality to my clients. which is really great. Like the one use case that I've found is offering a chat for their website. So if you're thinking of e-commerce website, a lot of times people will put something in their cart, but by having this chat functionality, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, you'll be able to finalize more purchases, or at least that's the goal. So the purpose, action is the foundational key to all success. This is Dora Maar, the Picasso piece. Thank you. So I wanted to build something. We're here, we're doing code, we're all doing fun stuff. I wanted to make a rock, paper, scissors game using Django, using Django channels. And for those who are not familiar, rock, paper, scissors is a hand game in which each player simultaneously forms one of the three shapes with an outstretched hand. Paper covers rock, rock breaks scissors, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is what I made here. This is part of it. And as you can see, it has the logic, and it tells you right now, okay, hey, it gives you the score at the bottom. I apologize for all the design. I literally was coding this 5 minutes ago. I'm sure my bosses love to hear that. Moving on. So yeah, as you can see, even with the simple design, hey, I threw a rock, opponent threw a rock, tie, so on and so forth. Oh, hey, do you want to play again? No. Good. Love it when stuff doesn't work. Okay. The conclusion, only put off until tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. Of course, this is Picasso's one of his most famous pieces, The Three Musicians. And finally, a live demo, okay, because what could go wrong? Okay, this is a Heroku app that I came up with following the tutorial. You put in my name. Okay, but simultaneously, if you went to this also, this chat room. Excuse me. How much time do I got?
Your time is up, actually.
Okay. Well, everybody wants to see how the game finishes, right?
Yeah, but here in
This is suspense.
Here in Lightning Country, we are about fairness.
That's true.
Yep, which means you've got to go.
You gots to go.
Yeah, you got to go.
And then lastly, paper, say it, hey, bing, bang, boom.
Yeah,
That's all live. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care and have a great day.
Obviously, this is supposed to be a little bit of a lighthearted introduction into cryptocurrency, of how to lose all your money trading cryptocurrency. The first way to do that is to take advice from a 5-minute presentation at a conference. The second way is to listen to somebody that's only been doing it for 5 months. And then the obligatory, this is not financial advice, so if you lose all your money, it's not my fault. So the first place we need to start is with Bitcoin. This is kind of an introduction into cryptocurrencies. If you've never taken a look at it before, but you've always been like, someday I need to figure out the basics of that. The first thing is you don't need to understand the technology to actually be able to deal with Bitcoin and other altcoins. Basically, it starts out, you have a coin, and it really is just a piece of numbers on a really long string on a blockchain. The blockchain is basically a distributed database, and that's all you need to understand for the moment until you get further and deeper into like researching other topics. This wallet address at the top actually produces this QR code that people use with their wallets, and I'll explain that, or their wallet applications, which I'll explain here in a second. And by the way, if you currently have something, you can send me a tip using this QR code, and I would appreciate it. So there is kind of 3 types of wallets that you can generally think of. There's hardware wallets, there's a hot wallet, and then there's a paper wallet. Hardware wallets is actually kind of like a USB stick that you kind of plug into your computer. It pops up. You can actually do all your things. There's a hot wallet, which is something like JAX, JAXX, which is what I use for my day-to-day interactions over the internet. But it's not actually stored on my, the information isn't stored on my machine. on a node. Probably shouldn't go much further into those details. And then there's a paper wallet, which is actually really fascinating to me. You basically write down a whole bunch of stuff on a piece of paper, put it in your safe deposit box, and the only way anyone can ever access that wallet is if they go to your safe deposit box, pull out that paper, and type in those numbers into a specific piece of technology. And then basically all a wallet is, at the end of the day, that you need to understand is it's a whole bunch of words, kind of like, many word password that you need to save somewhere so that you can restore that wallet at a later time. Basically, all wallets is that long string that I showed you in the beginning that save basically 1s, 2s, and 3s and either 123 bitcoins or 0.0123 bitcoins. However you want to deal with it, it's just string that stores numbers. So how do you get some Bitcoin? The easiest place that I find for people to start is to use a site called Coinbase. You can basically attach either a credit card, a PayPal account, or your checking account, and you can immediately-ish buy some Bitcoins and get started on your path. From there, you can actually move through your different wallets, a Bitcoin from one location to another by using that address. So that leads us to altcoins. Altcoins are in a sense, derivatives of Bitcoin. That's how they kind of started, and then other people started developing similar blockchain technologies. And they, too, have a wallet similar to that long string that holds 1s, 2s, and 3s and whatever combination that you need. And you can trade those back and forth. Those are basically altcoins. It's some sort of value that other people place on another type of technology. Where can you get some altcoins? You can get 2 other types at Coinbase. Again, I like to bring up Coinbase because it's an easy place to start. You can get Ethereum and Litecoin, and they're debating the new Bitcoin Cash at some other point to maybe bring that on board. So that kind of gives you a place to start. But there's 800 different altcoins. How do you get those? Well, you can go a step further, and you can go with Shapeshift, and you can start shifting from one altcoin to another. Through there, I forget how many, it's like 30 or 50 or something like that to start. But where do you get the other 800 potentials? You start with exchanges. Poloniex, Bittrex, Kraken, or GDAX are your top ways to exchange it. And this is how you make your money, doing day trading. A lot of information out there about that. So let's get to more ways to lose money. Randomly buy altcoins without doing any research. Buy and sell on emotion. Don't buy and sell on emotion. I can explain that one to you later. Don't learn anything about trading, and don't pay attention to the market. Finally, don't start. And then I run GoDjango. I'm on Buddy Lindsey on Twitter, and don't forget you can send me a Bitcoin tip if you want. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Buddy.
Okay, so we'll see if we can make this work. All right, so hi, I'm Nicholle James. My Twitter handle is @obochick_. And several people have asked me why I use obochick. It's because I am a professional amateur oboist. So I figured I'd go through, and because I need practice speaking in front of people, give you a small history about the oboe. So the first sort of oboe is actually the olos. I hope I don't butcher this. It's a flute that was used in Greece, and they believe that it had a double reed, which is what the oboe is. It's a double reed instrument. So the olos is either 1 or 2 cylindrical tubes that you blow into and you play. There's a fun myth about how Apollo cursed Midas with donkey ears because there was a competition, and Midas declared that Apollo did not play better than the person competing against him, so that was fun. But the next one that I could find was the duduk. This is from Armenia. There are many different opinions about when this one actually originates time-wise, but the Armenian historians say around 1200 BC. If you notice, it has the double reed at the very tip of it. It's a rather large reed. And it sounds closer to an English horn, which is kind of like the tenor oboe, so it's a lower voice. It's still used today. It's normally played with two dudukes. One of them plays kind of a drone or one tone, and the other one plays a melody on top of it, and you get a really interesting thing. It kind of sounds like the bagpipes, but not. So that's the duduk. Then there's the zurna, or the sorna, depending on where in the Middle East you are. It shows up all over the Middle East. There's stone tablets with Persian courtesans playing the zurna. So that's a lot of fun. It is normally about this long, which is not very long. If you know most instruments, it's pretty short. Again, it is the double reed, and the reed is about half the length of the modern oboe's reed. So it's about the size of the tip of your thumb. But again, and then most oboes and renditions that come after this are actually derived from the zurna. So there's the suna, which is the Chinese version. They believe that the oldest record that they have of the sona is from the Jade dynasty. They're pretty sure that it showed up before then, but they're also pretty sure that it didn't originate in China. So they're pretty sure that it was probably one of those things where like the zurna or the sorna showed up, and this was created after that. The sona is still used in China. It's used for funerals, marriages, and some military, well, in ancient history it was used for military maneuvers, similar to the way the Scots use the bagpipes, kind of to give the signal, because it's really, really, really loud. It's not something you want to play inside. And it's really fun when you get one that's made out of all brass instead of wood and brass. So that's fun. This one I just mentioned, I don't have a chance to go into all of the ones in Africa. There's about 5 different ones in Africa as well. But I just thought I'd mention they're there too. We're going to move into Europe now. This one is the direct descendant of the zurna, the sham. It's in Europe. They're around 1600. They started adding all different sizes so that you can have an entire chorus. So there's a soprano to the bass, all of them, which then led to the original oboe, which had 7 holes and 2 keys on it. And then we got to the modern oboe, which has about 15 different holes in it. And this is the one that I play. So to see the 3 of them together, and after that, there are now like 10 of them. But they're not used very often. There's one of them where there's only 2 pieces that have ever been written for the instrument, and there's only about 3 of them in the entire world. So with that, I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Nicholle. Alrighty, so as just been said, we are having a solar eclipse here on the 21st, which I didn't know until after I'd already was going to come to DjangoCon. And I thought, well, gee, it's only a few days after, and we're almost going to be there. And like this eclipse, which was in 2002, we went a long way to go see that eclipse for 30 seconds of totality. But it was something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. So this is a bit of a warm-up for next week. So this is near where totality happened, which is in the South Australian desert, which is a very barren place, as you can see from the photo there. And if it wasn't for the eclipse, there'd be no one there. They have, like, say, a big ranch with, say, 5 people on it, and it could be 100 miles across or 200 miles across, and that's the only thing that's there. Which means that when you are selecting a site to view this eclipse, you need to be really careful getting the car off the road. So here's some friends that came up from Adelaide, and we had to dig the car out of this big ditch that they'd managed to ground the car on. So that was... we had a bit of spare time because the eclipse ain't going to wait. Just like 5-minute lightning talk finishes at 5 minutes sharp, totality happens and then it goes. And so So there's the boys with their various homemade instruments looking at the eclipse. Before totality, you can't look at it through the naked eye. When you look at the sun, when it's just up in the sky by itself, it will cause you pain and you'll look away. But when it's close to totality, it won't cause you pain, but the damage is still happening. So you need to be very careful. But when it's total, you can look at it directly. But only when it's total. So here's some boys looking at some reflections in these devices that they made up, which, because it was late in the day, which next week won't be, they could conveniently use the slope of the car windscreen to put those devices on. The interesting thing, this photo is blurry. This is 2002, and digital cameras weren't anywhere near as good back then. The light was still, it looked bright, but it actually wasn't bright. It was actually really dark. The sun was about 95% covered by this stage, and we're just looking at the shutter times on cameras, and they were really long, even though it looked bright, but it wasn't. Finally, it starts to get dark. I took some pictures with a film camera, which have been scanned, and here's a photo of the sun with the filter. And so I'll just quickly flick you through as the moon begins to appear, which is about an hour and a half before totality. And it spends its time cruising over the sun's face slowly. When it's looking like, you look up in the sky when it's like this, if you actually weren't looking at it through a filter, it doesn't really look different to normal daytime. And the sun, even just 5% coverage, 5% less, so 95% coverage, it still just looks normal. It's only when you can see that moon is slowly but surely covering more and more. Now we get this very thin crescent. It still looks like daytime, but now it's getting really dark. I had a big filter over the camera. When I'm looking at this tiny crescent, I was like, maybe I can take that filter off. And so then I take the filter off, and this is taken unfiltered, and it's like blasting away, and then I see that, which is the last direct sunlight fading, and we can start to see the chronosphere of the sun, which is the red thing. And because I only had 30 seconds, I had a whole plan for what I was going to do in terms of photo exposures and go bang, 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 like this guy coming up to me. Like 30 seconds is about the time from there to here. And so we see the Bailey beads, we see the beginning of the solar chronosphere, and then, it's gone. Then the end, the start of the sun from the other side. And that's the solar eclipse. You'll never forget them.
So my name's Mike Hansen. I'm an engineer at Rover. And today I wanted to talk to you a bit about prefetching behind the scenes. So how many people here have used or at least heard of prefetch related within Django? So quite a few. But probably not everyone has taken a look at what the code is that Django is doing under the hood in order to make this work. I've found a number of times that it's been useful to know what's going on. And so I wanted to give an overview today of just sort of kind of the main functions involved and the main pieces so that if you may need to customize how you fetch data, you'll sort of know what's going on. So we'll have a little toy example today with dogs and toys. We have two simple Django models. And the thing to notice is that on the toy, there's a foreign key to the dog model. And so we'll think of the toys as toys belonging to a dog. So what happens when Django evaluates this query set? Well, the first thing that happens is it evaluates it as if you hadn't done prefetch related at all. So it's just like the same thing when you evaluate Django.objects.all. Django will run some SQL and build a list of dogs. So here we have Miyoki and Megatron, which are my two little chihuahuas. And so once it has a list of dogs, then it needs to perform the prefetching. So the main function that does all of this in Django is this prefetch related objects function. It lives under django.db.models.query. That's sort of where all of the prefetching code lives. And what happens is Django calls that function. It passes in the list of dogs that we got from before, as well as our prefetch related lookups. So the first thing that prefetch related objects has to do is it needs to find a prefetcher. And a prefetcher is just any object that has a get prefetch query set method. So Django has a number of built-in classes that have these methods, but you could very well make your own, just any sort of object that has get prefetch query set. The code that gets the prefetcher is this get prefetcher function. And at the end of the day in our example, basically all it will end up doing is it will take the first dog in our list of dogs and get the toys attribute. Here we can see it's a related manager, and that this related manager does indeed have a get prefetch query set method. So once it has this prefetcher, we need to use it. So the function that does this is prefetch one level. And we call the get prefetch query set method. We pass in our list of dogs, and we get back 5 objects. So if you want to implement one of these things, you just have to return these 5 objects. I'll briefly go over what they are. There's this related query set, which is here it's all our toys filtered by the dog IDs, but you could return any sort of iterable for that. Django doesn't really care that it's a query set. We have related object adder, which takes one of these toys and returns an identifier for which dog it's associated to. Instance adder takes a dog and also returns an identifier, and that's how it matches them up. Is single means there can be, it's false, so there can be more than one toy per dog, and a cache name for where to store it. So once we have this, we can iterate over all of our the query set. We'll get our list of toys. We can use this related object adder function to build a list of toy object, a dictionary, mapping the identifier to the toys. And then we can iterate over our dogs and associate the toys with them. So here, if you look on Miyoki, there's a prefetched objects cache, and that's a mapping with between this cache name, and here we have a query set with the toys already on there. And you can see if you do miyoki.toys.all, you're actually getting this object from the cache. And so thanks. If you're interested in efficient data fetching in Django or pretty much anything else, feel free to come see me. Also, Rover is hiring, so check out our careers page and also our engineering blog.
Thank you very much.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Kenneth Reitz. If you know who I am, it's probably from the Request project, which I created. And I'm here to talk to you about a new project of mine called pipenv, which is intended to replace your usage of pip and virtualenv on a day-to-day basis. So one of the problems with pip and virtualenv when you're using them is that there's 2 ways to use pip with requirements files. One of them, is this text large enough to see? It is? All right, good. Is to specify your requirements in a very human-friendly format like this, where you just specify the names of the dependencies that you want. Unfortunately, when you go to push to production, this is not a very stable build. So the more best practice way to do it is to pin all of your dependencies like this. And this is called dependency pinning, effectively. So there are ways to do both of these at the same time. There's some great tools available for that, like pip tools. And I recommend using those tools if you're using pip. And, but I wrote a tool called pipenv, which I'll show you right now, which kind of gives you the best of both worlds. So we're going to cd, or make a directory called demo. So this is going to be a brand new project. Go into demo. And I'm going to do pipenv, and I'm going to install Django. And it's going to create a pip file for the project, and it's going to create a virtualenv for the project for me, because it knows that that's what I want to do. And it'll take a second for it to go and install Django, because the internet connection is not incredibly fast. Let me connect to my iPad to speed things up. hopefully. There we go. I'll connect, there we go. Come on, there we go, installing Django, excellent. So what this is doing is it's creating a new file called a pip file, which is going to be something that's built into pip in the future. And it's a new standard for specifying your dependencies. So now if we look at the pip file, it's in this nice human-friendly format, TOML, and you see Django equals star, which means I didn't specify a version of Django, so I'm saying I can use any version of Django. And I can do pip block, which takes a few seconds because of the way pip works. I unfortunately can't say, tell me the latest version of Django. It has to download it again. But you can do pipfile.lock. And just like in Bundler and all those other tools now, we have, it generates a deterministic file that you can use to rebuild your environment. So Django requires version 1.11.4 and PyTZ at 2017.2. And so it did that all for us, and we didn't have to deal with that. So if you can just start your project and do pipenv install, it would have installed the right version if you had a lock file in there, and everything works great. And the cool thing about this is I'm using the default version of Python right now. Let's say I want to switch to Python 3. I just do pipenv-3, and it will destroy my virtual env and create it with Python 3. And if I want to switch to 2, I do pipenv-2, and it does the same thing. So it's managing and destroying my virtual envs for me. It's kind of like a replacement for virtual env wrapper and pip and all those things combined by using and utilizing all those tools together. So yeah, do we have time for like a question? Is that the thing that lightning talks do?
1 minute and 15 seconds left.
What's the hash of? The hash is of the pip file, so that we know when it's out of date. So if you update the pip file, it knows when the lock file is out of date.
Can I hash the packages themselves so
Yep.
maintainers can't retroactively insert code into my project?
pipenv-block-hashes will include hashes for all of the packages, and we'll check them when you install. Yes, that's disabled by default because different versions of Python will download different packages, and will have different hashes. It used to be on by default.
Can we install pipenv with pip?
Yes, pip install pipenv. You can find out about it at pipenv.org. Yes.
Windows support?
Works great with Windows. That was not easy.
Okay, is there a way to specify a Python version?
To specify what?
Specify the Python version within your pip file, so you can say lock into Python 3.6.
Yes. You can, in your pip file, say, there's a pep for this. It's pep 538, I believe, and you can specify any of the version markers, and one of them is it requires Python, and then you can run, you can specify any version of Python in there, and then you can run pipenv check, and it will check all of those requirements, and it will